you want access to this podcast earlier than any other viewer, consider becoming a channel member. All tiers get access to this podcast earlier than people who are not channel members, and it does help out this channel a lot. So if you do want to get all of the news updates, discussions, and market information for Flesh and Blood before anybody else, please make sure to become a channel member today. This podcast is also sponsored by Fyendal's Collection. Fyendal's Collection is a collection database website dedicated to showing you the market analytics of all things Flesh and Blood. Looking to track an entire master set? Fyendal's Collection has you covered. It's as easy as creating a collection in their collection tab and choosing which set you'd like to see in all of its glory. There's even an option to only add one of each equipment and cold foil, which really excites my set collecting heart. As a free user, you can upload your collection here to have a great look into what you have accomplished so far in Flesh and Blood. But if you wanted to track your collection in the secondary market, becoming a subscriber really ramps up that analytics portion of Fyendal's Collection. For a measly $3 a month, you get to see the gain and loss each of your collections receive, so you can accurately determine the worth of your cardboard, as far as dollars are concerned. Subscribers also get access to the Market Trends and EV Tracking tabs, too. Market Trends is a great way for you to see what's hot in the Flesh and Blood market, and may even give you some insight into what you should pick up for your own collection. The EV Tracker tool is another great example of the data that Fyendal's Collection can provide. Tired of wondering if you're going to get hosed if you buy a booster box or even a case? Well, the EV Tracker is constantly updated to show what your estimated value is on each Flesh and Blood sealed product, which is a great thing for sealed collectors or even people who are just looking to get into the single selling business. Again, all of these tools and more are available to you for just $3 a month. But how about a free month's trial of the site before you settle in? By going to the subscription section and choosing a promo code, you can enter my affiliate code ASHTCG, all capitalized and all one word, and you will get a month of Fyendal's Collection subscription service for free. So if you've been looking for a new card collecting database for your master set collections, or even just some small little collections of your favorite pieces of Flesh and Blood, look no further than Fyendal's Collection. Don't forget to use the promo code ASHTCG when subscribing to receive a free month of service. Thank you so much to Fyendal's Collection for sponsoring this channel, and let's get back to the video. Welcome on in, Dragonfolk. It is such a pleasure to have you here on what I believe is episode 4 of the Common Language podcast for Flesh and Blood. Let me tell you guys, I am super excited that I get to keep making this content every single week, and I'm happy that you guys are all here with me, checking it out, talking about the fun things that are happening in Flesh and Blood, talking about some, controversial topics, and kind of really getting a lot of the information down as far as, beginners and getting them into the game and getting anyone who might not feel super comfortable in the game to get more accepted into it, training into things and talking about metas and budget formats. I think it's super, super great. I'm very, very happy that I get to keep making this every single week, and I'm happy that you all are enjoying it. But for this week, we're actually going to be talking about the very, very blatant information that we learned from Pro Tour Amsterdam, which just happened, right? Pro Tour Amsterdam is the most recent giant organized play event that happened. Very, very big event, like 400 some players, I think, were in it. And it was a ton of fun to watch the games, checking out people's play styles, and the Riptides are winning and FaBs are winning and all these other things are happening. But eventually, it got to the top 8, and it looked pretty open still for it being a Zen in new only meta, right? So what I wanted to talk about a little bit today is not the Pro Tour itself, right? But it's what happened at the Pro Tour, or at least a few things that I was able to personally catch at the Pro Tour that actually made me think of this topic. I was going to go off of a different topic this week, but instead I'm going off of strictly the concept of knowing how to play the freaking game. Okay. So when you have players who complain about the price of a TCG, right? I've talked about this in previous videos that I've made, in which the price of a TCG is often enough for somebody to go, I don't feel comfortable getting into the game. It's far too expensive for me to play at a competitive level. I don't have like $600 to $1,000 to spend on cardboard. I have like maybe 100 at most. And that's okay, right? If you can't afford playing a TCG at its highest competitive level, then obviously don't, right? And it's not up to the company to make sure that you can play at $100, right? Because the company is still growing at that $600 to $1,000 range decks all the time. And then new decks come out, things change in the formats, so on and so forth. But it's all about finding the fun into it. That's why those budget formats exist that we talk about here, like Commoner and Clash and UPF, and to a lesser extent, Blitz, or even just using Blitz pre-constructed decks to go against your friends. It's super, super great. But something that I always tell people is far more valuable in Flesh and Blood than the price of your deck. And that's the knowledge that you have when you are playing Flesh and Blood. Because in Flesh and Blood, knowing your hero matchups, knowing what the opponent's heroes do, knowing what your own hero does, is far more valuable than any dollar amount you could put on a deck. And the reason I say this is because there are people who can beat other individuals with less powered decks, like, decks that just genuinely have less power in them, and still prove to win those matches. I hear several times from whenever I make these, the Is Flesh and Blood expensive videos, of people who will go to their LGS and go to their armory. They will, they'll bring this super big, like $1,000 deck or something, and their opponent will only have maybe like a $200 deck. And when their opponent loses, their initial response is, well, I don't have any expensive legendaries or majestics, so like obviously I'm not going to beat you. And then I've heard of people swapping decks and then playing against each other again, and the person who won prior with their 1,000 deck won with their opponent's deck. And that's just because player A, who has the $1,000 deck, right? Player A knows how to actually play into their matchups. They know how multiple heroes work. They know the general concepts of these things. And more importantly, they know their own deck playing against it. So they would have an idea of where its weaknesses lie, where its strengths are, what turns you should block out, what turns you should just not. And it's incredibly important to note this going into what we're talking about today. Because at Pro Tour Amsterdam, something that had come up that I personally saw, there's, I think like 3 instances of something that is the case, including the winner. But the winner not really being a bad situation. In the last, I think 2 or 3 rounds of Swiss for Pro Tour Amsterdam, it's Classic Constructed. So more Classic Constructed stuff. I didn't end up watching the draft. I don't have an attention span for learning draft as of right now. I know draft, but a lot of it is just kind of the same games you see over and over because of such a limited card pool. But it is good to see draft games if you are looking to learn draft. So it is something to watch if you are looking to end up becoming a Pro Tour champion. You're going to want to learn draft. But something that I noticed is that in one of these games towards the end, I think it was round 13, I want to say, there was a Zen who very much so was just playing their rounds. They were just like, okay, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. They're kind of fast playing. And they're going through the motions. And there was a moment in where the individual was essentially assumed they had an additional resource for Descendant Gustwave when they did not. And they played Descendant Gustwave against their opponent, and their opponent did nothing. They didn't check resources. They didn't make sure that this was their resource count was correct. They weren't on top of that stuff. And that person was able to get another Descendant Gust Wave off. I believe that Zen went on to win that game. Probably not strictly because of this reason, but it did happen. That is an opportunity for you as a player to make sure that when you look back at a game like that, you have to realize that your opponent, whether or not they are fatigued due to playing Flesh and Blood all freaking day, they are still supposed to adhere to the rules and the mechanics of the game. And if you are not on top of your game watching your opponent, and your opponent is too fatigued to care about their own strategy and making sure that they're not going to IP themselves, then they're just going to get away with it. They're going to get away with it, and that's what you do not want to do. You as a player, no matter how powerful your deck is, no matter how much you love Flesh and Blood, you need to make sure that everybody at the table, including yourself, is playing to the utmost accuracy that you could have for a game, especially when it's streamed, because there's a lot of things that were happening recently with the streaming stuff, which I understand why this happened, because having chat be a judge is just like the worst thing that could ever exist. But there's a point now where chat cannot post in chat. The people who are talking in the chat for the live streams of these games cannot be talking to the people who are doing the administration for the live stream by talking in chat saying this individual misplayed a card right there, or they totally didn't pay resources for their card in that situation. Go get a judge. And then have somebody from production go get a judge, bring that judge to the table, and then that table end up getting it, whoever did that end up getting an IP restriction or whatever. They're not allowed to do that anymore, right? Which is good, because I can only imagine the amount of people who are just like, this didn't work out. Like, the amount of inaccuracies I see in Flesh and Blood, like live chats, is crazy to me. But that was the thing that had happened during the Zen game. And, mistakes happen. We're all human. But again, this is a situation in which, again, it does not matter how expensive your deck is. There are still mistakes that can happen and will happen if you are not paying attention to those things. I'm not saying rule shark individuals, right? Because rule sharking can get a little bloody, for lack of a better word. But rule sharking is at least going to make sure that your opponent is playing accurately and legally in a way, because you don't want your opponent to just play cards for free. If I just played CNC for free with no, nothing off my back, like, oh, whatever, I'm not playing CNC, then what is that going to do? What is that going to do for me going forward, looking at that game, knowing that I screwed over another individual by possibly getting into the top 8 by my own poor play style? I'd feel bad about that. And more importantly, I'd expect them to feel bad about themselves for not catching it either. So it's really a weird situation, a weird gray area where you can't quite blame either individual for how this went down, but you have to realize that it is down to your actual brain functioning in a way that makes sure that your opponent is playing everything that they need to and paying for the resources they need to, and you're doing the same thing. So that is why when I see high-level gameplay and I see mistakes like this happen, I understand that Flesh and Blood, the fatigue of playing a game like this all freaking day is a lot. But I feel like you need to have a strong mental fortitude to be able to make this happen, because otherwise mistakes like that happen and it could have cost them the game. They could have gotten an IP right then and there. A Zen with an IP is like the worst ever. They might as well just lose the game at that point. And who knows what mistakes happen after that. What I then want to talk about afterwards is what happened in round 14 with, I believe their name is Kevin Zonker. They were from Germany. They're on Levia, right? Levia, they made it into top 8. And this is a situation where, I'm going to explicit this. I didn't see the beginning of top 8, so I'm not sure whether or not they got this penalty. But during their game against a KO, who I am losing the name of that KO off the top of my head, but they were both 10-3. This was kind of a win and in situation from what I know, depending on breakers and all that stuff, but everybody was excited to see Levia possibly hit top 8, which they did. Kevin did bring Levia to top 8, and it was very, very cool to see. I love seeing Levia gameplay. It plays super well, especially with all the cool stuff that she got recently. Very powerful deck. There is a card in every Levia deck, ever. I don't think I've ever seen a Levia deck that does not run this card, and it is Blasmafet Levia Consumed, right? I'll put it up on the screen if you guys want to look at it. If you haven't already looked it up, it's also called Levia Redeemed. It's the demi-hero for Levia that came out in Dusk Till Dawn, which, speaking of, we should open up a pack, because I'm going to get into this here, right? We're opening up 3 packs in this set, or in this this video. So I want to get some ASMR out to you guys, show off some good stuff, and just kind of play around with things. So we got a wonderful Celestial Resolve, Break of Dawn, Angelic Wrath, an Embodiment of Earth, Siege the Demagon, a Phantom Wraith, Soul Cleaver. All right, we've got our Rainbow Foil, I believe, Light the Way. Cleansing Light for our rare, and a Funeral Moon. There we go. We got a nice Majestic out of that one. So that's our Dusk Till Dawn. Sweet stuff. So speaking of Shadow, good thing we pulled something like that. So Blasmafet Levia Consumed is a demi-hero for Levia. And what happens is whenever you hit, if you've taken Blood Debt, reduces your life down to 13 exactly, then you flip your hero into Levia Blasmafet Consumed in most cases, right? What this does is then turns, let me see, what is it here? Once each turn, you may play a card with Blood Debt from your Banish Zone. And then whenever a card is put into your Banish Zone, turn it face down instead. And then if you would lose life from Blood Debt, you would instead banish the top card of your deck. So this is kind of a self-mill strategy that ends up happening. It's not good to their endgame strategy, right? But it gives them kind of the ability to have a 5-card hand at all times for however many Blood Debt cards they do have in their Banish Zone. It's a very powerful card. It's a necessary card to play in Levia. Let's just put it that way. Every Levia deck in Clash runs this card, so it's very good. But something that a lot of people miss, which I've seen on several different live streams and prior to the Pro Tour, is that last part there, right? If you would lose life from Blood Debt, you instead banish the top card of your deck. So in this situation, Kevin had 5 cards, I believe, in their Banish Zone, and they had been able to flip over to Blasmafet Levia Consumed. What this means that if there are 5 cards in your Banish Zone at the end of your turn, before you draw, you take Blood Debt damage, which would be 5. Then you would mill 5 cards from the top of your deck and put them face down because they're banished, right? You put them in the Banish Zone. They'd be face down, so you wouldn't be able to use them. And then you'd be able to continue on with your turn and draw up to 4 and then move on. But twice, Kevin Zonker did not utilize this ability during their final game of Swiss, the win and in. They didn't utilize this. Chat saw it. The casters weren't even talking about the situation at the time. And I don't expect everybody to know absolutely everything about every hero, because that's a lot of information to get into yourself, right? But I do think that you should at least know the key cards that are in every hero's deck. Zen, you know they're playing Art of War. You know they're playing Ancestral Harmony. You know they're playing, Chase the Tail. You know they're playing their Transcend card, their Sacred Art. You know these things. New is the same way. You know New is playing Beckoning Misplayed. You know New is playing things like Persuasive Prognosis and Bonds of Agony and any other stealth cards, Art of Desire Mines, any of these things. you should know what they do. And Levia always is running this card. So if you are testing to go into a big event, you should know what this card does. When this hero got flipped over, right, and Blasphefet came out, the opponent did look at Blasphefet, but only peeked at it. And then just kind of put it back, right? I would hope that this individual was able to read the card and learn what the card did if they truly did not know. But they apparently decided to ignore the fact that Kevin was missing the mill step in his end step. This is, again, I'm not saying that Kevin did this on purpose, because I don't think he did, right? I don't think he did. But what I do think happened was that it's late in the day. It's like the last game before everybody gets to go home and chill and hang out for a little bit before top 8 tomorrow. And people are exhausted. But you as a player should also know what your card does. And you should be able to willingly explain what your card does to your opponent, including the detrimental effects that your card has to your own deck. Because at the end of the day, it's not your game plan to do all that, right? Your game plan is to make sure that you're utilizing the cards in your banish zone so that you don't have to mill cards further on into the game. Because, you know, you have 5 turns where you don't have to mill anything, and then you get an extra card nearly every turn. It's super beneficial for Levia to do that. But it came down to the wire, and twice Kevin missed this mill ability. And that would be a pretty big penalty in terms of this, because if KO, which I don't know whether or not KO would have still been able to pull it through, maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't have, but if KO was able to pull it through, then KO would have probably made top 8. But because they didn't, because they missed an opportunity for these mills to happen, for these things to occur, there could have been a lot of cards in Kevin's deck that were removed from the game because of this ability that they got to utilize instead, because they didn't bother with the mill. Kevin even played, which is the first time I've ever seen this in my life. They played Eye of Ophidia in Levia. And Eye of Ophidia says when you pitch it, you opt. So you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, you could put either or on the top or the bottom of your deck, however you want to do it. This would have been an opportunity, because I believe they opted cards to the top of their deck, that they could have just gone, no, you know what? Like, if we leave it on top, it's going to get banished anyway. I don't want to see it, right? But then they drew right into those cards at the end of their turn. So technically, they opted and then got to look and put those cards into their hand, where in normal cases, those cards would have been banished first, and then he would have drawn a new hand. And that's how that would have worked. So there's a lot of nuances here. Again, I don't think that Kevin did this maliciously. I don't think that the KO player, was, an idiot, right? Because obviously you have to do pretty well to go 10-3 into a format like this. But truly, it is something that is just another indicator of the knowledge that you learn when you are playing Flesh and Blood is far more important than the price of your deck. Because this knowledge is what allows you to look at your opponent and go, hey, you're supposed to mill at the end of your turn. Judge, now your opponent has an IP penalty. You want to make sure that they're also playing to the best of their ability. And it'd be different if it was an armory. At an armory level, I'd be fine giving people a little bit of like a, hey, by the way, I'm not going to call a judge, but like, you need to make sure you're milling at the end of your turn. Okay? Because that's it, right? We're there to learn. It's a learning space. That's the whole concept. But when there is thousands of dollars on the line that you could win, even if your score goes from top 16 to top 8, you get a decent amount of additional prize money. So it's important to make sure that if you're going to get that extra money, And if you not calling out your opponent on their misplays that happened twice, that could have cost you thousands of dollars. And I don't think you'd feel good about that going home, knowing that, okay, yeah, I made it to top 8 and I got this amount of money. I did my best. I didn't win, but I made it there. Only to know that, yeah, I made top 16, but I could have made top 8 if I just knew what Leviah did. If I just knew what Blasmafet Leviah Consume did, and I knew that my opponent was missing these triggers, that I would have won. So I genuinely think in a situation like that, again, you have to make sure that you are learning everything you can about the heroes that you are going to go against, even if it's just at your local armory, right? Go around and find out how many illusionist players you're playing against. If they're prisms, learn what all the heralds do. Learn how to, play more poppers in your deck. Or if they're Enigma, make sure to play some unpreventable damage decks. Something along those lines. If you've got a lot of warriors, play Mechanologist that has cards that can't be blocked by armor in certain situations. Like there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to playing with these specific heroes. But you have to learn what each hero does, because it is going to cost you thousands of dollars if you're going to go to a competitive event and play in it. So next time anybody complains about, oh yeah, this deck isn't very powerful, or like, oh, this isn't, this deck is $1,000, so it wins every event, right? It doesn't win every event. It might not even win 2/3 of the events it goes to. It's all depending on the player. It's all depending on the player, their mind state, their knowledge into the game, and just truly putting focus into bettering themselves as a player. Speaking of bettering yourselves as a player, let's just move on. Our second pack is going to be a pack of Part the Mistveil. So, Part the Mistveil being a pretty specific part of the Flesh and Blood meta at this very moment. We're going to go ahead and go through this here. Bonds of Memory, Haze Shelter, Pouncing Key, Impulsive Desire, a Single-Minded Determination Red, Harmony of the Hunt, a Wash Away, a Nimblism Red, Tidal Surge, a Koi Blessed Kimono, Pass Over, Blessing of Ki, Second Tenet of Chi Wind, and a Rainbow Foil Waxing Spectre. So there we go. Not anything super crazy in that pack, but still kind of fun. We did get some nice little rares in there too, so that's always good. But somebody again, this is another situation where playing what you love is really what makes a winner in the Flesh and Blood world. And this comes down to the winner of the entire Pro Tour Amsterdam. Shoma Yamamura is apparently the owner of the very first Flesh and Blood store in Japan ever, which is really, really cool. A store specific to Flesh and Blood. And they took none other out of everybody crying about Zen and New and this entire, Part the Mistveil meta being awful and nobody's going to be able to get past it. They took Uzuri, the untalented assassin, to the top tables and won the entirety of the Pro Tour Amsterdam. They were one of 2 Uzuri in the entire 400-player event to take this hero from the bottom all the way to the top. They had only started playing a year ago. Their favorite set is Outsiders. They love playing Uzuri, and they've played Uzuri ever since she came out. This is a wonderful, wonderful tie-in to the play what you love kind of motto. Because while metas exist, it's about finding the decks that break those metas. And luckily enough, Part the Mistveil, while it gave a talented assassin who has easily come into the top tables through multiple different means, in this situation, the assassin stuff that we got in Part the Mistveil was also really good for Uzuri, right? Justin Nick is an assassin attack reaction. Persuasive Prognosis and Bonds of Agony are regular assassin attacks with stealth. You've got all this disruption that came out of these sets. You've got a huge suite of stuff. And more importantly, Uzuri getting the ability to just simply go, I'm going to swap this card out for something else and utilize its disruption. And let me tell you, Shred gets head. All right, I'll say it. Sam Dando and Ben Dodd, they talked about this back when Uzuri was first coming out. Shred gets head. Shred is such a good attack reaction. It's insane that nobody else is playing it. Like, I love playing it new. It's insane nobody else is playing it. But this is just another, what they call a Cinderella story of a hero who nobody expected to come into this format kicking butt and taking names. And just because this person has a lot of practice on this hero, they've played Uzuri a ton ever since she's come out. And more importantly, in their own local meta of KO and Victor and Nu and Zen, they've won all the time. So they've crafted their own deck based around an anti-meta strategy. And that is beautiful to see. That is the kind of concept that you want to see from a deck like Uzuri. And it just continues to go to show that this is a game where specialists and people who are true to their own hero truly shine. If you're trying to get into a big event, sure, right? Zen made second place. We're not gonna forget the fact that Zen is still a very powerful deck. That is just how it is. But if you go and watch this Pro Tour, which you should, because at least watch the top 8, because this is an absolutely wonderful kind of mix of heroes with Levia and Uzuri, and then the Nus and the Zens. You've got tons of different games to watch, but more importantly, you get to see how a hero plays into one another, because Nu got shut down by Uzuri, and then the amount of disruption that Uzuri had against Zen allowed them to just not have anything. And then the best part about Uzuri compared to Nu personally, which is what I'm looking at, right? We'll go into a different thing for that. But the biggest thing that I'm about for Uzuri over Nu is that Uzuri doesn't have to run no block blues, whereas Zen has to run a lot of no block blues, and Nu has to run a lot of no block blues. So when it came down to the final amount of damage coming through, Zen couldn't block, and they died. And that's the game. So it's very much so a wonderful thing to watch. I definitely go suggest to watch that top 8. It's something you're going to enjoy, I promise. But this, again, is something I see time and time and time and time again, which is if you are a specialist on a class or even a specialist on one certain hero, and you are able to tweak that hero into the meta that you are playing into, and the meta that you were planning on playing into in a bigger event, that is how you are going to become a better Flesh and Blood player. It's not about the cards inside your deck. It's not about all these other things. Now, granted, obviously, you want to upgrade your deck to have more powerful cards if you're going to go into a more powerful kind of play, right? You're not going to go into a Calling or a Battle Hardened with a Precon. You're going to lose, but this is just another concept of the fact that you need to have that information. And Shoma looked at the opposition and said, my deck beats all of them. The only thing that his deck loses against, which he said in his interview, the only thing his deck loses against is Kano. So much so to the point that he didn't even bother running Arcane Barrier in his sideboard when going into this event. If he played against any Kano in the top 8, he would have lost. And he knows that. He doesn't run a lot of blues. He runs mostly reds. So he'd be out. He'd be out of the tournament. But he didn't run into a Kano. He knew a Kano was never going to make the top 8 in this format because Zen can blow them out of the water pretty quick just due to speed. Nu has a lot of disruption that they can utilize. And it's great. It's great. I just love seeing a nice little underdog story. I love seeing people take it with the hero that they love and truly show that there is a way to go around it and change a meta without needing to make this insane claim that like these heroes are ruining this game and you know I'm never going to play Flesh and Blood again as long as Zen is a hero in it. You need to be able to learn something from this, which is just play what you love. Play what you love. I don't care if it's Viserai, who is like bottom of the barrel right now, or Kasai, or Dorinthia, any of the warriors that seem to be getting no play. I don't care if your favorite hero is Betsy, a Guardian who is, by most Guardian players, deemed to be garbage. Play who you want to play. Learn your local meta. Learn what the meta looks like from a higher competitive standpoint, and tweak your deck to go well against those players and those heroes. And that's what's going to make you a better player. Because at the end of the day, being a better player is about the knowledge that you have for the game and your sheer studies into the Flesh and Blood world as you go through your journey. So that's all I have to say on the actual topic itself. We're going to obviously move into our collection stuff for this time around. But first, we're going to open up our last pack here of the Part the Mistveil. I am hoping for something super spicy. The last packs of these sets seem to have some good stuff in it. So we're gonna try our best and go from there. So we're gonna go ahead and pull a Breed Anger, a Hiss, Spectral Manifestations, a Biting Breeze, Intimate Inducement, one of my favorite attack reactions from this set, Flex Claws, Spill Over, Fact Finding Mission, an Aqua Lapse, Path Well Traveled, a Tide Chakra Red, a Moon Chakra Blue, a Foil Breed Anger Yellow, and nothing else. So looks like those ones did not have anything spicy in them, and now I officially need to buy more packs if I'm going to be doing more openings during our podcasts. So let me know in the comments down below what packs I should buy, right? I like opening Dust Till Dawn. I think it's a very, very cool box. So I might try that, but who knows, right? We'll see. So moving on, we're going to move on to our collectors part of the section. If you don't already know, we do have a sponsorship from Fyendal's Collection. This is the site that I personally use to track all of my collections, to track master sets, to eventually make videos on master sets and utilize all that. So this is something that I utilize on a day-to-day. It is $3 a month to subscribe to this and utilize every single feature it has. And if you wanted to, again, become want to check it out for like a month or something for free, you can always utilize the code that I said at the beginning of the video, which you can go back and watch the ad for that there, which is AshTCG, all one word, all caps. You put that in when you are subscribing and you'll get a free month. And then you get to utilize all this cool stuff, right? And if you end up paying for it afterwards, that's great. I get a kickback as well, so it's always appreciated. But what I want to talk about is Aria, Tales of Aria. So Rosetta obviously got a huge amount of stuff. If you haven't watched my Rosetta video, my keynote breakdown for Rosetta, I definitely suggest going to go and watch that. A lot of information came out this weekend about a future set, and it's going to affect this set directly, Tales of Aria. Because Tales of Aria already has a bunch of Earth and Lightning cards that exist and will probably not be reprinted in the set. I'm sure some of them will, but probably not all of them. And what this is going to do is it's going to show you, if you've ever thought about getting this set as a master set, I highly suggest it, because it is by far the cheapest set to get as a master set in the entirety of the Flesh and Blood universe right now. It is essentially the homelands of Flesh and Blood, and it is it blows my mind because it's really only expensive in the first the first 8 cards of the set, and then the rest of it is so crazy inexpensive that it blows my mind to think that these cards are even this low. So with Tales of Aria, we have the first edition, which is $871 market value for a master set of the Tales of Aria first edition. And it's actually at its TCG player low, $783.24. So under $800 can net you a full set, a full master set of Tales of Aria first edition. That is pretty good. The top 8 cards here being Spellbound Creepers, New Horizon, Corsham, Crossroad of Elements, the Channel Lake Frigid Altar Edition, Shock Charmers, Rampart of the Ram's Head, Crown of Seeds, Heart of Ice. Those 8 there are the top cards in the entirety of Tales of Aria. One of the cards, being Crown of Seeds, is banned in Classic Constructed, so it is significantly cheaper now. But the Channel Lake Frigid Alternate Edition is a very rare card to pull, and it's about $80 on market. And then, of course, you have the Fabled, and you have 2 pieces of equipment that pretty much drive the entire value of Tales of Aria, which is Spellbound Creepers, probably one of the best foot pieces for Runeblade, and might see a lot of play when Rosetta comes out, therefore its big spike in price. And then New Horizon, which is nearly one of the best headpieces for Ranger. It specifically was used a lot more for Lexi, but now Riptide is using New Horizon a lot too. I'm not sure how much of this is going to be changed out when the Azalea Armory deck drops and we get a whole bunch of new equipment for Ranger, but New Horizon still seems to be a pretty big choice for a lot of people. Its art's super pretty. It allows you to have 2 arsenal zones, which is just like the nuts for Ranger, so it's very good. A lot of people are enjoying it. And then, of course, Corsham, the Fabled. It is $90 for a cold foil Fabled. $90. You should pick this up, especially from an older set, because these are harder to pull in these older sets. It's just that there's a lot of the print run, and so because there's a lot of a print run, you end up getting a lot of people who go, oh, this is too... There's going to be like 100,000 of these, and it's not going to actually matter. I don't know how many there are of this Fabled, but to see it in cold foil is really good. And these landmarks keep popping up as the staple Fabled type for the sets that have been coming out. You know, you have Deathmatch Arena and Mistcloak Gully now being 2 new landmarks that have come out as Fabled for these sets. So I'm very curious to see when these Fableds are going to become so incredibly important to the game plan, because we already see it with Grand Library of Solana, right? I didn't think I'd see Grand Library of Solana being played in this day and age, but Prism does like using that card sometimes, so it is very, very, very good for their strategy. So a great pickup. Again, this is probably one of the most beautiful versions of Channel Lake Frigid. It probably is the most beautiful version of Channel Lake Frigid to date, so definitely suggest picking that up. Shock Charmers is going to be pretty important into the lightning meta that we might be seeing as soon as Rosetta hits, so that might be good. This is a Guardian offhand, so it's a shield, but for Rampart of the Ram's Head, but I don't think that Guardian is still running a whole lot of super great stuff. I don't even think that Victor is running Rampart of the Ram's Head, so it's not a in-demand shield right now, but it very well could be at some point. Who knows? Then, of course, again, Crown of Seeds is banned. Heart of Ice. There's no new ice cards coming out. No ice heroes coming out in Rosetta. So, because there's no ice heroes coming out in Rosetta, Heart of Ice doesn't really have a place. It's nowhere. It's not available to be used in Classic Constructed. Not able to be used in Blitz. The only place it's able to be used is in the Living Legend format, and that might just be where it sees its only play as a chess piece in that format. But we'll see. So those are the top 8 cards for the first edition, with Spellbound Creepers coming in at about $143. New Horizons is coming in at about $110, and then Cold Foil Corsham coming in at about $90. So you're looking at about half the value of this entire set in just these 3 cards. So if you can get the rest of them at a very easy cost, I suggest doing so. A lot of people were throwing away their Tales of Aria for a really long time, so it's good to just pick it up when you can, especially the bulk. And the rainbow foils just look gorgeous, so you have to get it. The same deal is with Tales of Aria Unlimited, believe it or not. The same cards are in your top 8. The only difference is that the alternate edition of Channel Lake Frigid does not exist in the Unlimited version. Instead, the next most priced card in the set is Terra Sunder at $10. So other than that, though, the same route is here for the legendaries and fables for Tales of Aria Unlimited. You have Spellbound Creepers at first at $121, New Horizons in second at $84 for the Rainbow Foil, a Rainbow Foil Corsham for $53, a Rainbow Foil Shock Charmers for about $53, Rampart of the Ram's Head at $35, Crown of Seeds at $24, Heart of Ice at $17, and Terra Sunder at $10. Now, of course, if we brought this down to the low pricing, you would, of course, see that much of that is still under now $600 for the entire master set of the Unlimited version of Tales of Aria. This is $117 for Spellbound Creepers, $90 for New Horizon, a $60 Shock Charmer Rainbow Foil. Rainbow Foil Corsham is about $54, so not much change there. Rampart of the Ram's Head Rainbow Foil $32, Unlimited Crown of Seeds for $23, Unlimited Heart of Ice for $17, and then the actual Terra Sunder gets swapped out in this situation because it looks like the Channel Mount Heroics in Rainbow Foil are actually looking to bring up the price because Earth Heroes are making a comeback, and we expect probably that with the Earth Runeblade at least, we are going to be seeing more people play Channel Mount Heroic, and Channel Mount Heroic was a big deal for Briar back when she was in play. So I think a lot of people are choosing to get onto that train. But even still, $7 for a Rainbow Foil Channel Mount Heroic is pretty good. And again, if you're looking for the entire master set, you can get it for right around $550, $600 if you know where to look. Most of what this is bulk. So if you take out a lot of the non-foil bulk that you can get out of this, or maybe you have bulk already sitting in your closet and you just haven't put it into a binder, that probably cuts a good portion, maybe like $50 some off of this entire list. And then the rest of this is just in these legendaries that you can pull from this set. So very, very nice set. It's very beautiful. The art is great. The colors and the vibrancy of everything in there is a great pickup. And also, just if you haven't picked up a Spellbound Creepers and you want to play Runeblade, I suggest picking up a Spellbound Creepers now before we find out that like Florian or Aurora are top tables and are able to beat everybody everywhere forever and just like kick Zen out of the meta. Because if that's the case, these Spellbound Creepers are going to be up a lot. But who knows? We might get new foot pieces in Rosetta anyway. So there's that. Let's move into our market tracker. So as a subscriber, you get to use the market trends section here, which shows us the new things that are coming out and around with some cards, any changes in their percentages. So overall, we're going to look at some percentage gains here. It looks like some stuff is being picked up for Wizards from Dynasty. Tempest Aurora is getting a little bump there. Looks like it's gone up in price. Just the rainbow foil, though, for the yellow, but the non-foil for the red. Brainstorm has seen a lot of uptick in price recently, simply due to the fact that we now know what Acilio does. And a lot of people are assuming Acilio is going to be a big Brainstorm concept, you know, draw cards, deal arcane, draw cards, deal arcane, draw cards, deal arcane kind of deal. So that's good. Remembrance is up in price. Looks like we're expecting a lot of fatigue, especially with the healing Earth heroes, both Florian and Verdance, although Verdance cares a lot more about healing. Both of these heroes will utilize healing abilities in their deck. So Remembrance is probably going to be used for some fatigue builds with them. Then, of course, it looks like we have Aetherize is getting a boost in price. Just the first edition one from Crucible of War. Amulet of Lightnings are going up from the Unlimiteds. You have Read the Runes going up in prices because, again, Rune Blades are getting a pretty big deal there. Hamstring Shot, a lot of people are moving over to Ranger and checking that out because the disruption of Ranger is very, very good right now. So Ranger is a pretty great place to start if you're looking to just do a bunch of disruption. Hamstring Shot is great, especially for making their stuff cost additional resources. So if you can get that off, that's good. And then even just moving down, I mean, it's not really a whole much more movement, not at least like big swings in movement. A lot of this is just like a couple dollars more. Poison the Well went up in price pretty significantly, but that's just because, again, we found out that Verdance is going to do a lot of healing in her deck. Not sure entirely on whether or not Poison the Well is going to be as powerful as people think it is, because it's not like I'm going to play this card and your entire turn is going to be anytime you heal, you take damage instead. It's just the first time they heal during their turn, they take that damage instead of healing it. So unless there's a card that says like heal X based on the amount of instant cards in your graveyard, then you're probably not expecting to see a whole lot of sheer value out of Poison the Well personally. But it is getting people talking, so we will see. And that's pretty much it. That's most of it. A lot of the stuff that you see go up in price is going to be Runeblade and Wizard stuff, strictly because Runeblade, Wizards, and generics, because a lot of this stuff is going to come out and it's going to give support to these classes, right? Regardless of the fact that the Elemental Runeblades and the Elemental Wizards, that Elemental section is kind of what they really care about, but both Wizards, including Kano, and Runeblades, including, Vincent, Viserai, and, they've got a ton of non-elemental cards, I'm sure, that are coming out in this set that are going to be utilized for those heroes too. So we might be seeing an uptick in Viserai play. We might be seeing an uptick in Vincent play. We might be seeing an uptick in Kano. Kano might just end up getting like nutty things for no reason. So those are options available. So keep your eye out on those if you're looking for those kind of, if you're looking to play those kind of heroes. But if you're like a warrior main and you just love playing warrior, look out to see whether or not they spoil a warrior card in the expansion slot. If they don't, it's fine. But if they do, see if it's good for your deck, and then maybe think about picking up a playset. And then finally, we're going to look at the EV tracker. So normally with the EV tracker, we kind of just look through all the products that are here and we check to see which ones are doing better. There is significantly more boxes becoming more closer to their EV levels. A lot of this is red if you are visually watching this. A lot of this is in the red, of a big difference, right? So for instance, an Arcane Rising booster box case of first edition, the market value is like $5.3 thousand, but its estimated value is $4.1 thousand. And that's a lot to lose if you're trying to open up the product. Now, obviously, if you end up getting anything really, really good in there, like, a Cold Foil Eye or Cold Foil, what else comes in there? Cold Foil Stormstriders, like very, very powerful cards to get out of there and will sell very well. But buying a lot of this older product is hard to get EV out of, strictly because it is so old and there's not a lot of it. The sealed market is a lot better for these cards, or for these boxes, than the singles market is for it right now. Because most people are looking towards the unlimited versions of these boxes. Dusk Till Dawn looks like it's got about like a $10 difference in EV. So it's really not a huge loss if you're trying to open up Dusk Till Dawn. I don't know where in the world you're getting Dusk Till Dawn boxes for $76, but that's pretty cool if you're able to do that. A case goes for about $310. You get about $267 out of it. It's hard getting good EV out of a Dusk Till Dawn case unless you're getting like a Warmonger's Diplomacy out of every box, which in most cases you are not. Outsiders, not super great. Dynasty, not super great either. Then of course you have, Welcome to Wraith is obviously like significantly worse. Crucible of War Unlimited is still in the positive EV right now. That's just because Crucible of War, I think a lot of the cards are trying to be picked up for first edition stuff because there isn't a lot of it printed. And even the unlimited stuff is looking pretty good. This all this positive green here is for unlimited product. So it looks like a lot of people are realizing that the boxes are too low at $68, and they realize they can get more out of it at that time. So they're buying up a whole bunch of boxes at this price to flip the singles and make everybody happy in that situation. Let's see. Let's look for some more green. Bright Lights boxes are officially in the green according to the market value of TCG Player. A market value box of Bright Lights is about $60. If you can find Bright Lights boxes for $60, I do suggest picking them up. There is a Fyendal's Spring Tunic in the expansion slot. Not to mention the fact that more and more mechanologists are coming out of the woodworks after Max the Hype Nitro just recently won a Battle Hardened in Bologna. So there's a lot of cards in there that are pretty good for them. So if it's something you want to pick up, it's also the first set ever to include the Crack Shuffle in Play opportunity. So if you're looking to get somebody into Flesh and Blood and you're just like, well, I don't want to make them think too hard, you can just get a box of this, take packs, slap them together, and then play Crack Shuffle and Play with them. And I think it's really, really good. So great way to look at that. Cases are not a good AV, though, for Bright Lights, unfortunately. At least it doesn't look like it in a way here. But if you're able to get them at $60 a box, that's only $240. These guys are selling for $281. So depends on what you have working for you. On another set, Monarch First Edition having a big EV. It looks like the market price of a booster box or a booster case for First Edition Monarch is about $283. So it's getting to be about map. You're still able to make a ton of money off of it, right? Monarch is still a very prevalent set for a lot of people, a lot of nostalgia in Monarch for people, tons of people who joined the game during Monarch. So I do suggest if you're looking to pick that up, do that there. A first edition box seems to be about $64 according to this, which is great. They do have Part the Mistveil on here now, which is super awesome to see that Part the Mistveil is now on the EV tracker. So as of right now, it looks like there's not a whole lot of EV to be had from Part the Mistveil, but again, a lot of that is just based into, are you pulling a Levels of Enlightenment, a Weakest Link, or any Marvel? Because if you're pulling any of those, or like even the cold foils, Marvels are pretty much the one thing that holds these set together. The same goes for heavy hitters. You don't see a whole lot of EV value in the heavy hitters boxes either. That's just because you have to hit the really rare stuff in order for it to be worth that money. Outside of it, if you get some good Majestics that are able to sell really well into prevalent heroes in the meta, then you're going to do pretty well there too. The expansion slot also does a lot of carrying for Part the Mistveil and heavy hitters. So those are also cards to look out for. And you're guaranteed to, I think, at least get like 2 to 3 expansion slot cards in each box. So pretty worth it in that situation. But that is it from me now. We've gone on for nearly an hour according to my timer. So that's about podcast length for you guys to be listening in to what I've got to say. So thank you all so much for watching. I do really, really appreciate it. I know this is something that a lot of people look forward to. Again, if you do want to watch this video and watch this podcast, any of these episodes that I release will all be released a few days early than everybody else, usually on a Monday. I release them. I get it ready for people's commutes and their drives to work and stuff like that. So if you are looking to do that, just have something to listen to in the morning, by all means, I have that available, and you get it a couple days earlier than everybody else does. So if you want to do that, you become a channel member. That's how you do that. You also get access to a whole bunch of other stuff like emotes and sub badges. And if I end up making any content strictly for members outside of giving you guys early access, I'll go ahead and I'll do that. You'll have access to that too. So pretty great stuff. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this on the regular time that it's released for the general public, thank you so much. Please, everybody, make sure to hit the like button down below. That certainly helps out push this video to other people who might be looking for a Flesh and Blood podcast and talking about just the overall takes of the Flesh and Blood world. And you can also subscribe to the channel as well. We are nearing pretty close to about 1,900 subscribers. So, again, of course, our big goal is 2,000, hopefully by the end of the year. And then we can go ahead and smash it through be able to get a nice little giveaway going or something like that, and then moving on from there. So thank you all so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think about this. Is there a topic you guys maybe want me to cover during next week? I certainly could. I might cover the topic I was going to talk about, but now that I've watched Pro Tour Amsterdam, this is just, again, another further concept of the fact that just play what you love. Enjoy Flesh and Blood for what it is. Find a hero that resonates with you, a play style that resonates with you, and just learn into every single matchup you possibly can. I don't care if you got to play a bunch of Boltons or Arachnes or Betsies, whoever it might be. Learn your matchups, learn how you're playing against them, and then learn how to beat them. Because if you can learn how to beat them, it doesn't matter what your deck is or who your hero is, you'll be able to become a Pro Tour champion. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Please continue to have fun in the Flesh and Blood. And I will see you all in our next episode of the Common Language Podcast. Nerd out.